I offered a homeless veteran my couch until his new job started, and 3 weeks later, I was pinning him down waiting for the police to arrive. His name was Joe, and I first noticed him outside the grocery store near my apartment in October when the weather started getting cold and he was holding a cardboard sign that said, "Veteran, anything helps, God bless." I gave him a few bucks that first day, and he looked me in the eyes and said, "Thank you for seeing me," and something about the way he said it made me stop and actually talk to him. He told me he served 2 tours overseas and came back to find out his wife had emptied their savings and disappeared, and the way his voice cracked when he talked about sleeping in his car that first winter made me want to fix everything for him. I started bringing him coffee and food whenever I went shopping, and after about a month he told me he finally caught a break because a warehouse job was starting in 3 weeks, and he just needed to survive until then. I asked where he was staying, and he said that most nights he slept behind the strip mall. Before I could even think it through, I said, "Why don't you stay at my place until you get your first paycheck?" And his whole face crumpled like I handed him his life back. He kept saying, "Are you serious? Are you actually serious right now?" And I told him I was, and he started crying and said I was literally saving his life, and he would never forget what I was doing for him. He was a model roommate at first, but by the second week, things started feeling wrong because $40 vanished from my dresser, and then a watch my dad gave me disappeared from my bathroom. When I asked Joe about it, he looked offended and said, "You really think I would steal from the only person who ever helped me?" And I felt so guilty that I dropped it. I asked about his job a few days later, and he said orientation got pushed back another week, and I wanted to believe him, but I couldn't stop noticing how he was never home on Tuesday and Thursday nights. One Thursday, I followed him for 20 minutes until he stopped at an apartment building across town and punched in the door code like he lived there. A woman leaned out the window calling, "Joe, honey, come up, I made dinner." And he yelled back, "You're literally saving my life," which were the exact words he said to me the night I gave him my keys. I went back the next day and knocked on her door, and when she answered, I said, "I need to talk to you about a man named Joe," and her face went pale. Her name was Diane, and she thought Joe was a recovering addict whose new job started in a few weeks. And when I told her my version, she said, "He told me I was the only one who believed in him." We compared stories, and nothing matched except the convenient job that was always about to start. And then we found a third victim named Phil, who thought Joe was a disgraced youth pastor with a teaching job lined up. Phil kept saying, "I gave that man $300 for an apartment deposit that doesn't exist." And by the end of that conversation, the 3 of us had a plan. Joe walked into my apartment Friday evening expecting a normal night, and instead found me on the couch with Diane and Phil on either side, and his face cycled through confusion and panic before settling into something cold. He said, "I can explain everything if you let me talk," and Diane cut him off asking why he told her his parents died when he was 12, and Phil demanded to know about the church background he invented, and Joe kept looking between us trying to figure out which lie would work until he realized none of them would. He laughed and said we were being ridiculous and walked toward the door, but Phil stepped in front of it and told him he wasn't going anywhere. Joe shoved Phil hard in the chest and said, "Move or I'll move you." And when Phil didn't budge, Joe turned back to me with this look I had never seen before and said, "You really want to do this? Because I will make your lives miserable if you don't let me walk out right now." Diane pulled out her phone and told him the police were already on their way since he walked through the door, and Joe lunged for the phone, but I grabbed his arm and the 3 of us forced him down onto the couch. He looked up at me and spat out, "None of you actually cared about me. You just wanted to feel like a hero. I could have told you anything and you would have ate it up." We held him there until the sirens got close and he finally stopped fighting. I never got my dad's watch back, but Diane texts me sometimes and we laugh about how stupid we feel, even though the only thing we did wrong was believe that people deserve second chances.